So we have about an hour to drill deeply into what circling is in our practice at the Integral Center. I want to acknowledge we brought up more questions than answers last night in our transparency. So to summarize last night, one, we're in an open exploration of what circling as a brand and as something that is somewhat coherent and somewhat sporadic in all the different communities. We're exploring circling the wagon to see what's possible and what would it take for it to become a household name, where anyone would know what circling is and whether they want it or not. And two, whether circling becomes any one coherent brand or not, there are some essentials that have brought all of us together under that name, and the more we practice it, the more I think you're all going to thrive. So this summit is in service of us going as deep into the practice and living it together as possible with a fire under our ass to make sure we're bringing it out into the world. And three was me also acknowledging ways that I've been personally reluctant, and not just the challenge of what we're all up to, but my own personal ones, and I think I was speaking for a lot of the different community leaders. So if you have questions about where I've felt hurt or burnout from some other community leaders, and Guy Sangstock is here and his journey from leading a lot of this stuff and his burnout and my burnout, like a lot of, if that is a live conversation for any of you, especially with such a young community, I have those Q&A sessions that are very open format in the evening each day, and there are probably other ways we can explore that as well.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about some of the projections that happen at being a community leader and stuff, and being like whether there was actually Decker being clear of scandal. And I don't know how many of you have looked at the handout, but it's nice to see that Decker's helping clear that out, seeing that after circling, Decker is going to be leading Exploring Your Kink, Beyond Shame to Integration. And actually, on the second day, he's also doing a sexual breakout. So I'm glad to see you're helping clarify for us.
I don't know why you would project all this stuff on me. I don't know where this is coming from.
At least on day 2, it's consensual power exchange. So maybe we could address that disparity, that nasty disparity between teachers and students. We could get that handled if it's consensual, I can see. So.
Thanks, Bryan. God damn it. So me and Master 7.
Who is Master 7? I don't know who this is.
For the record, I am not teaching. I'm the most vanilla person in this room. I can't teach anything about kink, but I did promise to be there to support Master 7 in that workshop. So I will be in there. Don't expect me to teach any of that. But this is classic. I don't know where this stuff comes from. And we chose to take on this building and this project because we were and still are clear that our mission of facilitating the leap to more integral consciousness in the world, the same way that there was a massive leap with the civil rights movement and moving from more rational consciousness to pluralistic, there's another leap pregnant in culture, and that we're helping facilitate it. And if there's a particular unique way that we can help wake people up to the next jump, it's through relational practice and applying integral principles to how we be with each other, I and thou, moment by moment. There's a lot of pitfalls in it being a relational practice, and it's the most high leverage angle we can do. I am to you.
Thank you. I was, sitting here with my legal pad. I'm reminiscent of the times where, I would go see Ken Wilber speak, and he'd always have a little legal pad, and while the people were talking, he'd be really scurry minutes, Always what is he writing down? And so I was really excited to get a legal pad and scurry minutes. Talking, it was actually quite nice. I kind of place to put my thoughts. I don't have to totally pay attention to what they're saying. I want to acknowledge that it's like the idea of having a circling conference that starts with like 2 hours of listening to people talk, like last night and this morning, is so anathema to the practice. We're talking about circling before actually experiencing it, which is definitely putting the wagon before the horse in my book, where it's a lot easier for these perspectives, for these distinctions to actually anchor somewhere when we actually have a referent, when we actually have an experience that we can anchor it with. So, in light of that, we'll tailor this a little bit to be a bit of an inspiration to get us excited about circling, so then we have experiences that we can later their distinctions on. But in just like having this opportunity to speak to the integral vision and what that has to do with circling right now, we talked about it last night. Decker just reiterated it again about how evolution is occurring in the world. There's enough research out there that's showing that development actually exists, that maturation is occurring in multiple dimensions in all of us. And so knowing that, acknowledging that development exists, means that there aren't right and wrong ways to being. There are more and less mature ways of being among many different dimensions. And to me, that's the greatest challenge and greatest opportunity of our day, is to recognize where in our own development we are making other people, other perspectives wrong because we disagree with them, versus understanding the truth in all sorts in other perspectives, and what I'm calling kind of perspectival patronage. Like, how can we actually be better patrons of other perspectives in the world, knowing that they're all right and partial. That's right. That there's a natural aspect of development that, in some terms it's called like a straw man. Like when like I'm developing away from a previous way of being that I want to, thank you, take note of that. So like if I learn circling from Decker, and then I develop my own new expression, I can say, God, that way Decker taught me is so worthless now. And I can be talking to Josh about it, and I can be like, yeah, the way Decker taught me it's full of shit, And as a way of like stabilizing my own new way of development, I'm using Decker as a straw man to like kick so that I know how I'm different now. It's just like growing up and growing out of your parents' house, right? Where like, I don't know who I am, but I know I'm not you anymore. Right? I don't have a stable identity yet, but whatever it is, it's just not who you people are. Which is natural. It's called counter-dependent development. It's a natural stage of differentiation. So that can be respected, but the problem is that it makes development really difficult when we're constantly doing that. When we're constantly using our language irresponsibly and not actually respecting where we've been and being humane. And so, that being said, circling, to me, I'm putting a stake in the ground that circling is the integral practice. It is the practice for fostering development. And it is a way to enact integral consciousness within a form, right? It is a formal practice. We are enacting a specific context when we're circling. Now there's, like we were talking about last night, there's the ways of being. That is kind of when we practice a lot, that we're coming into the world with more of a way of being that's reminiscent of circling, and that's definitely what the world needs more of. But there's also this specific practice that we train in, and that we're going to be doing all this weekend, this formal practice of circling, where we're setting a clear context that there are no right or wrong perspectives, that we're not going to be having a conversation about how my perspective is more mature than yours and how you need to change your belief system so that, and like, get your head out of your ass and stop being like that so you can grow up to be more like me. That's not what circling is. It's more of like, how can I actually not use your argument as a straw man to bolster my perspective, but maybe actually do a steel man of your argument? How can I make your argument stronger so I can really understand what it's like to see the world the way you do? And that in that process, you don't have to defend your perspective. Rigidity, perspectival fixation, all those things don't have to exist as much. Man, it's fun to wax philosophical like this. I don't get many opportunities to do it.
So far I have circling, Decker, and full of shit. That's what I got so far.
I feel seen. In response to that, I'm going to read a quote. This is a quote by C.S. Lewis. It is a serious thing to live in a society of possible gods and goddesses. To remember that the dullest and most uninteresting person you talk to may one day be a creature which, if you saw it now, you would be strongly tempted to worship. There are no ordinary people. You have never talked to a mere mortal. That's the context I carry with me every time I walk into a circle, and I try to carry that context with me into life in general, of just being like, God, I want to hate what's happening right now. There's so many rational reasons, sensate reasons, everything in the world telling me that this is wrong right now and it should stop. And yet, how could I assume that try on that I'm not seeing the whole picture right now. There's more for me to see right here.
Yes. So it's been 3 years since we put that stake in the ground with this building being the main gesture of burning the ships. And we have done a damn good job of clarifying what the practice is, somewhat translating how the integral practices show up in circling, yet also keeping it translated to where anybody who's not an integral geek can still kind of get the idea of what it is. And we've managed to bridge relationship with communities around the world in these few years in a way we hadn't before. We also have our first, is it a book? What are we calling it?
Yeah. I can,
What are you calling it?
a training manual or a guide.
Okay.
Yeah. So some of you, I don't think we've met yet. So I'm Bryan, and I wanted to share with you a bit of background about what I put together for this. That it was a fire under my ass to have it complete by this event. It was probably 13 years ago when I saw my first circle. I was out on Ocean Beach in San Francisco around the fire, and it was like a men's circle. And I remember seeing, I think it was with Jerry, who I'm sad is not here today. But I just saw him and other guys relating with each other in a way I'd never seen before. And I was like Decker, I was from Missouri. We didn't talk to each other like that. And when I saw that, I was like, God, of all the skills, I was just out of college, more or less, and I was like, of all the skills I could learn, like whether it's becoming a master musician or becoming really good at martial arts or whatever it was, like the ability to see someone and have them feel gotten and celebrated, I was like, that's what I want to fucking learn. That's what I want to devote my life energy towards, is because no matter where I go, that capacity is just going to serve me and the people around me, no matter what, for the rest of my life. And so that kicked off us ending up training and learning about this. And for me, at some point I was like, initially, and maybe several of you have had that experience, when you see someone who's good at circling, you're like, how the fuck did he do that? Like, what are the distinctions that he's drawing from in his mind that made that circle possible, that had that moment of aletheia where the whole room opened up and we got chills? Like, what was that person looking at? Or what was the filter that they were looking through? And now we've built this into a systematic process through T3 and other circling trainings. But for me, I was like, if I had a guide or a trainer that was like, kind of like Luke Skywalker with that little ball with the lightsaber training. So like anytime he wanted to sharpen up in his lightsaber Jedi skills, he would turn on this little ball that would basically electrocute him with lasers if he didn't block it. I don't have anything that masochistic for you guys today, but I do have a training device that I'm excited to share with you all. It's the culmination of the last 12 years of me hearing really cool tidbits of like, oh, that's a fucking amazing way to look at circling. Or hearing Decker make an offhand comment, or Guy make a comment that was like, oh, that's a brilliant facet. Like I could bring a whole circle with just that perspective and have it be an amazing circle. So I compiled those and went through all of the notes from our T3 trainings and everything else to come up with 37 practices that you can take on, and you just pick one of them. Basically, I'm calling it the oracle, where it's like almost like a rune, like a pool, where you draw a number from this pool, and that's the filter through which you can explore circling for that particular circle. So each of these are a different facet on the diamond of circling. Got another one here.
This is the first I've seen it.
So this is our first printing, and they majorly jacked up the cover. You can see it's The Art of Circling by Bryan Bear, and in case you didn't know who it was written by, it's Bryan Bear at the bottom again. So they're going to hear about that from me. But in the meantime, the content inside looks about right. I'm excited to share this with you guys. I don't even know why, on some level, I made this, because, I mean, in terms of like, this isn't really, like, you guys are our whole audience. Like, most of the audience for this book is in this room right now, so it's not like this is going to be a big money maker or anything. But it was like, and people are like, why are you, like, are we going to sell this? Are we, like, Integral Center's running a thin line margin already, so like, what are you doing spending all your time on this? And I was like, I don't know, this is just what's coming through me, so I'm just gonna write it and put it out. And it's been really cool. I feel like I've internalized a lot about circling through the process, and I feel proud about what it is so far. And we've mixed it in with stories, like personal stories, including my own first experience of really being circled, and really terrible inside jokes that you may or may not get. I hope you do. And again, the 37 practices. So I wanted to give a little demo for how you might be able to use this in your circling. So they're also arranged by yin and yang. So for any given practice, I was like, how do I even categorize these 37 practices? One of them was if it's a more like seeing something that's arising in the moment, like, wait, what was that eyebrow twitch just then? You know, like, what was going on for you that had that happen? It's more of a penetrative, investigative, like, focused, yang way of relating to circling. And then you have more of the yin, like spacious, horizontal, lateral, welcoming everything that's arising without, it's not as challenging. So each of the practices are categorized by yin or yang. And then they're arranged in order of like complexity, from some of the more basic practices to some of the more advanced, like, who do you think I think you are if you were thinking that I was, you know, those kinds of, most of those came from Guy, by the way. Because I don't know how the fuck Guy comes up with his perspectives that has, like, where do you come from when you ask these questions, but suddenly Alethea's happening. So I just would love for you guys to indulge me to throw out a number, and I would love to just read you one of these oracle practices.
36.
36. So number 36 is notice contact points. This is a yang practice, and it's an advanced practice. So at times when there are multiple open threads in a circle, we can often be unsure about which one to follow. In those moments, we can notice the contact points, like where or with whom is contact being made. Maybe there seems to be a particular zing of agitation with one of the participants in the circle. Or maybe there was a moment a while back that felt the most alive. Guide attention to the moment where the juice seems to be, in time to a previous moment in the circle, or in space with one of the participants. Whether the moment could be evaluated as a, quote, positive or negative is irrelevant. We're simply following the zing, similar to number 14, watching for aletheia moments. So the practice is whether you're following multiple threads in a circle and you're not sure where to go next, Notice the contact points and follow the ones with the most aliveness. So that's an example of one of the practices. So you might go into a circle with that focal setting and noticing the contact points. If you want to use these on your circles, feel free to grab a copy and just pick a number and flip to it and explore using that in your circle. I would love to get your feedback on how I can make this better. I see this as kind of something that's the culmination of all of our capital about circling so far, and that I hope this turns into 3,000 facets of circling eventually. So every couple years, I'll update them with your latest insights and facets on circling and add them to Oracle, so it can be like a body of wisdom that we can grow over time. So, thank you.
That you're just trusting what's coming through you and maybe helping us move to the next stage, even if we're not ready or we're not sure why. That's who you've been for us from the beginning. Thank you. Keeps going. All right, let's get more interactive now. So we have a half hour before. We have a half hour where we're one group like this, and I would like to use that half hour restating the obvious and coming back to, wait, what is circling and why are we making such a big deal out of it? And we can explore that in small groups, probably in your rows. So integral development through stages is obvious for me as a parent. It's obvious with kids. And for my son to still have his reflexes and still have the impulse to pee whenever he feels like it, yet also then transcend to a more complex identity that has impulses. He's not his impulses anymore. He has impulses from a higher level of complexity where he can decide whether he pees now or if he holds it and gets to the toilet and that. That's handy. It saves me money on pull-ups. They're not diapers, Daddy, they're pull-ups. He's got like pride around this now. So it's clear that transcendence is a good thing with kids, and yet also ideally, we're not only transcending, or the yang, but we're also including the yin. We're including where we came from and honoring the best. So rather than, why did you pee your pants and how could you do that? And shaming those core impulses, it's a lot slower. Some of my family members, their kids were potty trained very quickly, and I cringe about the process that they went through and the cleanup it's going to take with therapists later. So ideally, we're honoring the best of the stages we come from while transcending to more and more evolved states. When we get to adulthood, and we can drive and we can drink, and then there usually is a point of like, and now I'm kind of done. And development at that point is more horizontal. It's just different lines. It's just music or martial arts or a foreign language or something. But what if who you are is just still basically a kid, and you're just getting started? I remember this. Let's break into groups and explore this for each of you. But for me, getting that I'm not even close to done as an adult, I was just reminiscing about it at Birmingham with Micah. I was very stressed and very sleep deprived running a homeless youth program in the Castro in San Francisco. 8 of us started. You hadn't quite moved out yet, but close to coming out from Boulder. It's a whole other story. But I was pulling all-nighters as well and working with intensely creative queer youth, getting them off the streets, helping them get on their feet, and refereeing overdoses. And I was a medic in the military for a long time, so I was there for some heavy shit going on, and suicide attempts, and I had a lot going on emotionally. And I hadn't really fully gotten the green meme. I hadn't fully integrated that meme yet in the integral spiral. So my emotional savvy was, I'd gotten the conceptual thing of like all truths are relative, but I had not really gotten the emotional piece yet. I go downstairs, the homeless clients are watching a movie, they're watching Legally Blonde. Anyone saw that movie? Wait, yeah. It hurts that it was that movie, but they're watching that movie, and it's and I'm checking to make sure that they're not, who knows what they're doing instead of watching the movie. They're being good, they're really into it, and it's near the end of the movie where the music comes up and everyone likes her after all, there's something's going on. And I don't even know the movie that well, but it hit me. I got moved. And they were all kind of moved too, and the wave hit me, and I was just conscious enough for some reason to witness me feeling so much emotion, and it wasn't just about the movie, it was unlocking all the emotion I had not felt that was building up, of loving these kids so much, and feeling what they'd gone through to even get to San Francisco, and the ways they'd been totally exiled from their own families and churches, and all of it was coming, and I was going to cry, and not just kind of like tear up a little bit, like lose my shit. And I got to watch somatically my mechanism for not feeling too much emotion, which starts right here, grips here, but that was a joke. Like the wave of emotion was coming through, and this little crunchy thing I do here was like, yeah, right, it's coming through. Psychologically, mayday, breach, emotion is happening, lockdown, like my emergency valve is right here for my last ditch effort. Like soldiers are coming to put one last line of defense. Our throat was so tight it hurt, and then the tears and the emotion was like a battering ram hitting my throat. And that was not, it was again, yeah, right. Sound is going to occur. People are going to hear me. And I laughed. And laughter was not what I was feeling. Some part of me, some clever part of me, before I had to, this is a split second, well, if I'm going to make emotional sounds, I guess the most professionally appropriate one would be laughter, so I will translate it. It was some unconscious thing of like, when in doubt, when you're not comfortable with your emotions, laughter is the safest one. Kicked in before I knew it. I laughed. I managed to get a little tweak of, like, as if I was laughing at how cheesy the movie is, and then hauled ass out of there as quick as I could back to my office. And I don't think they picked up on it, and then back there just sobbed in private. But even while I was sobbing, I caught myself. And not only was I aware, like, oh, I just did that, and what's true, I say I'm committed to authenticity, but actually, there's certain things that are true for me that I'm not bringing. And not just in I have the excuse of like, well, these are kids, these are clients, but in general, my whole life, I actually was reviewing moments, circling like moments where I had been hurt, where I felt emotions, and rather than owning that I was hurt, I laughed. And I remember lovers reflecting like this, I don't feel you when you're laughing, I don't know what you're laughing about. And I would always have some reason why I thought it was funny, that still was total rationalizing that something didn't feel on. And those are the most juicy, real parts of the relationship were basically over at those points. And things were more formulaic and more managed from then on. So I got sobered up. And the best part for me was not only getting, wow, I am totally full of shit in certain situations, no matter how awake I am to who I am and my motivations and all of that, there's plenty more to go. There was a humility and a wonder of what other things, what if it's not just hurt and vulnerable emotion, what other things might I be out of touch with myself that I have yet to discover. That's one of my very favorite things about circling, is the opportunity for subject to become object. For the thing that I'm so used to, I'm swimming in it, to suddenly be object. I'm aware of this thing that I do. I'm just like my son has the impulse to pee, but that's not who he is anymore. He has more choice. I had more choice to actually just say, ouch, or let myself be more vulnerable and cry with anybody. There's more opportunity for real and close and connected, and evolution happens, while including the most tender parts of myself. I'm not spiritually bypassing them, I'm including them. It's actually more raw energy and emotion that we get to connect through. So as you go in groups of, looks like 4-ish, popcorn style, share any moments that come to you of ways that you've woken up to opportunities for your own growth. Or maybe even a highlight moment of someone else you've circled who's been able to wake up out of a thing that seemed like, no, there's nothing there, I'm not feeling anything. And then you're able to discover a whole new layer of what's true for you. Anyone want to share a highlight, a very punchy takeaway from that group? Or really, the topic was that transformation is real. That evolution and personal growth is an actual phenomenon, not something to feel good about how spiritual I am, but very nuts and bolts. My life was one way and now it's another, and it's a no-brainer that I prefer how it is now. Any takeaways from that? Yep, Bonzi.
Along the same lines of include and transcend is just identity is the theme I'm seeing. Like, I see myself this way, like this is who I am. And then these moments happen, and I'm like, oh, and I'm this too. Or I'm bigger than I thought I was, and there's more facets to myself than I was even acknowledging or allowing to be in my space.
And hopefully other people can encourage that in us as well. Like Bryan's share was wanting more, like, hey, what would be the next, what would have me not pee my pants as much? Like, what's my next level of transcendence? And I felt it was a little thin at first when we started throwing some things out of what might be his next level of leap. And what felt way more alive was just what has you wanting that, and being with him in the desire for being challenged this weekend or the curiosity of what would be the next level for me, and being in that was where a lot of aliveness came from, including a very vulnerable or a tender spot of wanting to get to be a student, wanting to still have places where we get held and challenged and supported. It's a practice of restraint. A lot of times circling is a practice of noticing the impulse to basically acknowledge that relating can actually, and often does, discourage evolution of consciousness. It oftentimes I will encourage you to stay entrenched where you've been, because that's what I'm familiar with. And it's a practice of restraint to actually welcome people more into what's arising for them. One more? Yeah, Sean?
We had a cool guy in our group that suddenly said, maybe I'm doing it now. Like, maybe I'm holding back some emotion right now. And then he checked in, he's like, yeah,
A little closer.
I got a kind of fear that I might be doing it, and I felt connected to Decca, but maybe I'm right. And then I'm like, are you sure that's fear? Like, you're looking quite connected and full. He's like, well, I kind of feel velvety, and like, yeah, it's kind of, he seemed quite erotic energy. So it's like, even in that moment, it was happening.
Yes.
With the perspective of like, oh, I'm not taking perspective, was in the way.
Yes. That's fun.
And that was cool.
And then if that turns into a circle, what sort of being would say that they're afraid when actually they're turned on and engaged? And how often do I say, oh yeah, I'm really afraid of that, when actually I'm super excited? But the rabbit hole just keeps going. Yeah. Yeah, it's ever-present opportunity. And I think that's where we're going to cap this, is just, yes, development is real. Now, depending on what stage I'm gravitating at, I can get really significant about that. At the first tier stages, there's a lot of pain and fear base. I have to evolve to get the fuck out of here and not have to deal with this situation. At the second tier, where there's less either or, we're in that inquiry of what motivates continually going up stages when there's very little fear left. I think we're all going to be in that inquiry together, but it's a real process that many people find intrinsically rewarding, that would have you spend your weekend doing this. And how we relate with each other can either I'd say often is at best neutral, or actually discouraging that development, and circling is a refinement of what quality of relating would actually encourage it. Ideally in a way that doesn't hijack our relationships where every conversation is just trying to evolve each other. But what if it's actually fun? What if it's actually more fun, better jokes, more sweet, more turned on, and damn, I'm growing like a weed just by the quality of relating. I have been a hard ass trying to really distill what are those qualities of relating that do encourage it and discourage it. And this summit is in a lot of ways me relaxing that grip to invite all of you into that process and that inquiry. What are those ways of being that can facilitate that evolution for forever? I cover it? Thanks for being in that inquiry with us. And I just got the helicopter. We're done.